this is my third time trying to record a video. Hopefully it goes well. Let's get started. Oh, so. Doesn't the thought of, realizing that you are human and there are like billions of others who are like you in this world, isn't that just crazy? I think that's pretty crazy. Anyways, let's get started. I recently started this book about schizophrenia. Um, it's pretty intense, really intense, actually. With my arms and legs pinioned to a metal bed, my consciousness collapsing into a puddle. No one paying attention to the alarms I've been trying to raise. There is finally nothing further to be done. Nothing I can do. There will be raging fires and hundreds, maybe thousands of people lying dead in the streets. And it will all of it, be my fault. When I was a little girl, I woke up almost every morning. A sunny day, a wide, clear sky, and the blue-green waves of the Atlantic Ocean nearby. This was Miami in the 50s and the early 60s, before Disney World, before the restored deco fabulousness of South Beach, back when the Cuban invasion was still a few hundred frightened people in makeshift boats. Not a seismic, cultural shift mostly. Miami was where it chilled. New Yorkers fled in the winter, where my East Coast parents had come separately after World War II, and where they met my mother's first day of college at the University of Florida in Gainesville. Every family has a Smiths. The talesman stories that weave us one to the other, husband to wife, parents to child, siblings to one another, ethnicities and favorite foods, scrapbooks, or the wooden trunk in the attic. Or that time the grandmother said that thing, or when Uncle Fred went off to war and came back with us, my brothers and me. The story we were told was that my parents fell in love at first sight. My dad was tall and smart and worked to keep a trim physique. My mother was tall too, and also smart and pretty, with dark curly hair and an outgoing personality. Soon after they met, my father went off to law school, where he excelled. Their subsequent marriage produced 3 children, me, my brother Warren, a year and a half later, and Kevin, One thing that I realized is I memorize a lot better, or I understand a lot. I understand more effectively if I imagine pictures. I think that's the one thing I have to remember with myself. If I don't imagine, I won't remember, and the story will just fall flat in my ears. It's, you know, it's just that's how bad I am with reading. I think I've come to acknowledge that. It's like, yeah, it's just more effective. I think I read slower if I were to imagine a lot of pictures or imagine a lot. But at least I remember, and at least I have a good knowledge of what the heck is going on. I think that's the important thing here. So when it says when my brothers and I were growing up, I would imagine two trees, like just two trees just growing, like shoop, shoop, like that. And one is my brother, and the other one is I. And when it's and after right after it says my parents had a weekend policy. So I would imagine day and night. So day is like Saturday and night is like Sunday. Dancing and dining at a local nightclub. Saturday, small their kids without the sort that they all big band together. Snorkeling and dancing out loud. Later in the day, some friends would go to Greenwell's Park, or the Everglades, or the Miami Zoo, or roller skating. We went to the beach a lot too. My dad loved sports and taught us all my the activity to shore. When I was 12, we moved into a bigger house. That's one with a swimming. That's one with a swimming pool. And we all play together there too. Sometimes we take the powerboat out and water ski, then have lunch on a small island not far from shore. We mostly watch television in a bunch as well. The Flintstones, the Jetsons, Leave It to Beaver, Rawhide, all the other cowboy shows, Ed Sullivan and Disney on Sunday nights. When the Perry Mason reruns began, I saw them every day after school. Amazed that Perry was amazed that Perry not only defended people but also managed to solve all the crimes. We watched Saturday Night Live together, gathered in the living room, eating Oreos and potato chips until my parents blew the health whistle and switched us to fruit and yogurt and salads. There was always a lot of music around the house. My dad in particular was a jazz fan, explaining to us that when he was young, claiming a fondness for jazz had been considered quite fairly rebellious. My record collection overlapped with Warren's, the Beatles, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Janis Joplin. We drew the line at the Monkees. I liked them. He absolutely didn't. And he teased me mercilessly about the poster of Peter Nolan from Herman's Hermits up on my bedroom wall. What the heck was that? I'm too tired to give a shit. Yeah, I'm pretty tired, by the way. really tired actually. Running on like what 3 hours of sleep. Um, yeah. Other shit that I did throughout the day. And there were movies which my parents attempted to supervise by appropriateness. Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, bro, came for me. But one James Bond movie, I don't remember which one now, except that Sean Connery goes to Battle Royale with my dad. I wasn't yet 17, and Bond with his martinis and his bikini-clad girlfriends was out of bounds. Interesting. So he did place limitations. You know, whenever I do want to have kids in the future, but the problem is I don't know how to raise them. I think that's the thing. I think it's really bad. It's a kind of like you want it's very irresponsible. I don't even know why I mean I'm saying this because um you know how would you raise your kid to be, because I think you have to set bounds, but I don't know how to effectively set them. Why am I even worrying about this? For a while in high school, I worked at a candy counter. Worked at a candy counter at a local movie house. Would you also like a Coke with that? Which meant I saw every movie I wanted to see, and many of them more than once. I think I saw Billy Jack more than a couple dozen times. Jesus. It didn't take long, though, to decide that I didn't like movies that were scary or tension filled. Horror movies were out, and Clint Eastwood's Play Misty for Me, with its crazy woman stalker, freaked me out for weeks. When the theater manager was robbed after closing one night, my parents made me quit the job. sense of humor that often verged on the body. My father could be quite absolute in his opinion and reactions. There was also a touch of suspiciousness in his interactions with others, particularly when the subject at hand was money. In this, he was just as his own father had been. My parents were both outspoken in their disgust for religion and racial bigotry. For example, we could swear all we wanted, but the use of racial or ethnic slurs was utterly and always forbidden. As provincial as Miami seemed back in those days, my father often said that it had all the disadvantages of a big city and none of the advantages. The tension between the city's African Americans and Cuban immigrants and the riots in 1970, during which our African American housekeeper was harassed by the police, taught us that even a familiar landscape could turn violent and unpredictable in the fog of prejudice. Whatever their fruit, whatever their faults or ours, there was no shortage of I love yous from my parents when I was a child, nor is there one now. To this day, they are openly affectionate with all of us, and even my friends are greeted with a hug and a kiss. My parents were never cruel or punitive, and never physical in the ways they disciplined us. They simply made it known from our earliest days that they had high expectations for our behavior, and when we missed the bar, they brought us up short. Nor did we ever want for anything material. My family was solidly in the middle class, and as time went on, our means increased. My father's law practice dealt primarily with real estate, land deals, and some personal estate planning, all of which expanded as Miami itself did. When I was 13, my parents opened a small antiques and collectibles shop a 5-minute trip from our house. It too thrived. And then they began to collect and sell items from Europe, which in time meant 2 or 3 trips to France each year and a lot of time spent in New York City as well. So there were never any concerns about having a nice place to live or good food to eat or missing our yearly family vacation. It was expected that we would attend college. It was a given that our parents would pay for it. They were loving, hard-working, comfortably ambitious for themselves and for their children, and more often than not, kind. To borrow a phrase from the psychological literature, they were good enough, and they raised 3 decent children. No easy feat in that or any age. My brothers grew up into 5 men. Warren is a trader at Wall Street, and Kevin is a civil engineer in Miami. Both are accomplished in their professions, with wives and children they love, and who love them in return. And for my own penchant for hard work and my drive to succeed is traceable directly, I know, to my parents. In short, they gave me and taught me what I needed to make the most of my talents and strengths, and although I couldn't have predicted or understood back then how vitally important this would be to my life, they gave me what I needed to survive. When I was about 8, I suddenly needed to do things a little differently than my parents would have wished me to do them. I developed, for loss of a better word, a few little quirks. For instance, sometimes I couldn't leave my room unless my shoes were all lined up in my closet or beside my bed. Some nights I couldn't shut off my bedroom light until the books on my shelves were organized just so. Sometimes when washing my hands, I had to wash them a second time, then a third time. None of this got in the way of whatever it was I was supposed to be doing. I made it to school, I made it to meals, I went out to play. But it all required a certain preparation, a certain precaution because it was imperative that I do it. It simply was, and it taxed the patience of anybody who was standing outside the bedroom door or the bathroom door waiting for me. Ellen, come on, we're going to be late, or you're going to miss the bus, or you were sent to bed 40 minutes ago. I know, I replied, but I just have to do this one more thing, and then everything will be all okay. Not long after the little quirks became part of my life, they were joined by nights filled with terror. which came in which came in spite of all the precautionary organizing and straightening, not every night, but often enough to make bedtime something I didn't welcome. The lights would go out, and suddenly it was darker in my room than I could bear. There's a lot of grammar errors and there's- maybe it's just me. I don't know. I'm gonna search this up if this is correct. I don't think it's not. I don't think it is correct, but we'll see. Yeah, it's not correct. Yeah, no, I'm sure. It didn't matter if I could just ignore the sound of my heart thudding. Yeah, well, I did recognize a grammar error before, and then there's this one. So, and I'm only on the what? What page am I on? Page 10, I think. Page 16. Yeah, that's strange. The reason, the reason why I don't really. This is a very prejudiced and very biased opinion, but what I find very simple, and I'm terrible with grammar. Um, you can get away with. I'm just terrible with grammar, in my opinion. But they're very, if I can pick some errors out, then it makes me question the entirety of the book. If that makes sense, like because I think of it as, if they were able to miss, if it's one mistake out of the entire book, then I would understand it. But this is the second issue, so I'm a little iffy about whether this was proofread correctly and um, what do you call it? If there's a if there is a better revised version um, than the one that I'm reading, essentially, because this the details are extraordinary. Really, she really does a very good job in explaining. I can imagine it. I think that's super super. It basically just encapsulates the reader's attention. It didn't matter if I could just ignore the sound of my heart thudding, or that I could hear my parents' voices down the hallway. It didn't help to remember that my dad was big and strong and brave and fearless. I knew there was someone just outside the window, just waiting for the right moment when we were all sleeping with no one left on guard. Will the man break in? What will he do? Will he kill us all? After the first 3 or 4 nights of this, I finally drummed up whatever courage I had left and told my mother about it. I think somebody has been outside my window. I said in a very small and shaky voice. In the yard, waiting for you and Daddy to go to sleep at night so he can come in and get us or hurt us. You have to find somebody to make him go away. Do you think we should call a policeman? Shit. The expression on her face was so kind that it made it hard for me to look directly into her eyes. Oh, baby. Her term of endearment for me. There's nobody out there. There's nobody in the bushes. There's nobody who would hurt us. It's in your imagination. Hmm. Maybe we shouldn't have. Maybe we shouldn't have so many stories before bed. Or maybe we're eating dinner too late, and it's your tummy playing tricks on your brain. Don't be silly now. As far as she was concerned, that was the end of it. I tried to believe her. I really did, and I fessed up to my fear and my to my and I fessed up my and I fessed up to my fear to my brother Warren when the two of us were at home alone, and we tried our best to reassure each other together. We'd muster we'd muster up our courage to go see if someone was indeed standing just outside the front door. And of course, no one ever was. But my feelings didn't go away, and for a long time, falling asleep felt like sliding into a place of helplessness. I fought it every night, my head under the blankets, until finally, sheer exhaustion and a tired, growing body just took me under. I am 7 or 8, standing in the cluttered living room of our comfortable house, looking out at the sunny day. Dad, can we go out to the cabana for a swim? He snaps at me. I told you I have work to do, Ellen. And anyway, it might rain. And anyways, it might rain. How many times do I have to tell you the same thing? Don't you ever listen? My heart sinks at the tone of his voice. I've disappointed him. And then something odd happens. My awareness of myself, of him, of the room, of the physical reality around and beyond us, instantly grows fuzzy or wobbly. I think I am dissolving. I feel, my mind feels, like a sand castle, with all the sand sliding away in the receding surf. Holy shit. Holy shit. What's happening to me? This is scary. Please let it be over. I think maybe if I stand very still and quiet, it will stop. Alright, so actually, this is. I don't know if I mentioned that this was my third time making this video. The first 2 times, something happened. But then, the third time, this one, I didn't want to really go into it because I lost the motivation. But then I just have to put in a little input of my own story. I also had this, not this exact episode, but it's something very similar. There was a moment, and it was the first and hopefully the very last time I will ever experience such a situation in my life. What happened was I I couldn't recognize myself. Like I couldn't recognize what the hell I was. Like the human being, that's I'm made up of these different cells, like the nerve cell, brain tissue, muscle. I have blood vessels. I have a heart. I have a liver, organs, right? Muscle, like toes, bones, blood, bone marrow, right? I I produce shit, excrement, and I produce carbon dioxide. I inhale oxygen, and all that. I drink water, all that kind of stuff. Nothing made sense. I didn't know what the hell I was. I didn't know what this space was. I couldn't recognize my room. I couldn't recognize my I so when I looked at the mirror and looked at the shape of myself, looked at these certain features of this being, like eyes. I couldn't recognize the eyes. I couldn't recognize the nose. I couldn't recognize the teeth, the mouth, the ears. I couldn't recognize the hairs. I couldn't recognize like the neck. I couldn't recognize anything. Um, and there was this moment of just immense. I can't really describe it. It was just I remember it being scary, and it was it was a kind of terror that I've never felt before. It's it was pretty bad. And I don't know if something activated, and this was also very strange. Um, Something activated in my head that told me that I need to take something familiar, like I need to find something that I know that will kind of help me snap back. And one thing I found was this coffee. Coffee was well, it's sweet, right? Um, I have honey mixed to it, honey, and then I put what do you call it? Heavy cream. So it's coffee, heavy cream, and honey. So it's sweet and it's creamy. It's delicious. Um, and when I was drinking it, I didn't know what the heck this was either. At that time, I didn't know what the fuck this was. Like I didn't know what a straw was. I didn't know I didn't know what the hell this was either. The cup. I just instantly recognized that this whatever this is, I needed to do it, and everything else was just muscle memory at that time. And when I had it in my mouth, I didn't know what the fuck I needed to do with the liquid in my mouth. And then something made me perform the act of swallowing, with muscles, neck muscles, everything contracting, creating a vacuum, etc. And then feeling the coldness running through my throat, running down my esophagus, etc. But yeah, I think that I just yapped for too long, but that was, and even at that time, I couldn't understand what was going on. It didn't. It made me realize a little bit. At the time, it didn't. I didn't snap back into reality, you know, like this. But then I think that it certainly helped me to go down steadily. That was like the point that helped me. So what I'm curious about is how did that how did that defense system kind of trigger itself? Like something told me to drink this thing, absurd, something that I didn't recognize, and something made me use my hands to grab it and then use the straws, which I didn't know anything about at that time. I couldn't recognize it. That's the thing. Isn't that scary? Like just imagine everything that you're doing on the daily. Imagine you don't know what the hell a toothbrush is. Imagine you don't know what the heck water is. Like you don't know like what the fuck to do with that. Like you don't know what your phone is. You don't know, you know, like you don't fucking understand. Like you don't know what language is. You don't know the sound. Like this, like like what is that sound? Like what is sound? Like I hear something, but then I don't know what that is. Does that make sense? Like you don't know what language is. You don't know questions. You don't know sentences. You don't know periods. You don't know breaks. Everything just kind of just if there was a string of coherence that connects your brain to the reality, that string or ongoing string is all of a sudden grabbed, and something grabs it, prohibiting it from continuing on further. At least that's what I felt. It's fucked. Anyways, let's continue reading. This experience is much harder and weirder to describe than extreme fear or terror. Most people know what it is. Most people know what it is like to be seriously afraid. If they haven't felt it themselves, they've at least they've at least seen a movie or read a book or talked to a frightened friend. They can at least imagine it. But explaining what I've come to call disorganization is a different challenge altogether. Consciousness gradually loses its coherence. Holy shit, this is exactly what I mean. It's fucked. One's center gives way. The center cannot hold. The me becomes a haze, and the solid center from which one experiences reality breaks up like a bad radio signal. There is no longer a sturdy vantage point from which to look out, take things in, assess what's happening. No core holds things together, providing the lens through which to see the world, to make judgments and comprehend risk. Random moments of time follow one another. Sights, sounds, thoughts, and feelings don't go together. No organizing principle takes successive moments in time and puts them together in a coherent way from which sense can be made. And it's all taking place in slow motion. I'm not sure about the slow motion part, but holy crap, this is pretty accurate to what I experienced. Oh my god, why is this screen pausing like that, man? I mean, it's helpful, but I think I gotta find a longer period, because my Kindle just locks itself if I don't do anything to it for some period of time. And I think I was babbling for a good 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm not sure. That's probably why. Of course, my dad didn't notice what had happened, since it was all happening inside me. And as frightened as I was at that moment, I intuitively knew this was something I needed to hide from him and from anyone else as well. That intuition that there was a secret I had to keep, as well as the other masking skills that I learned to use to manage my disease, came to be central components of my experience of schizophrenia. So there's no way I have schizophrenia, bro. Okay, maybe it's just a bad day. There's no way. Pretty sure that's not one symptom. I mean, pretty sure that's not the major component of a schizophrenia. Hell no. No. Get the fuck out of here. Hell no. One early evening, when I was about 10, everyone else was out of the house for a while. And for some reason I can't recall now, I was there all alone, waiting for them to come home. One minute, it was sunset. The next, it was dark outside. Where was everybody? They said they'd be back by now. Suddenly, I was absolutely sure I heard someone breaking in. Actually, it wasn't so much a sound as a certainty, some kind of awareness, a threat. It's that man, I said to myself. He knows there's no grown-ups here. He knows I'm here all alone. What should I do? I'll hide in this closet. Must be quiet. Breathe softly. Breathe softly. I waited in the closet, gripped with fear and surrounded by the dark, until my parents came home. It was probably an hour, but it felt like it went on forever. Mom, I gasped, opening the closet door and making them both jump. Dad, there's someone inside the house. Did you see him? Are you both okay? Why? Why were you gone so long? They just looked at each other, and then my father shook his head. There's no one here, Ellen, he said. Ellen, nobody's come to the house. Nobody's come into the house. It's your imagination. But I insisted. No, no, I heard him. There was someone. Go look, please. Sighing, my father walked through the house. There's nobody here. It wasn't reassuring so much as it was dismissive. My feelings about imminent danger never stopped, but talking about it to my parents did. Most children have these same fears. In an empty house or empty room, or even in a familiar bedroom that suddenly looks strange once the lights go out. Most grow out and away from their fears, or manage somehow to put their rational minds between themselves and the boogeyman, but I never could do that. And so, in spite of the spirited competitions I had with my brothers, or my good grades, or the powerful way I felt when I was on water skis or on a bike, I began to shrink a little inside. Even as I was growing taller, I was certain people could see how scared I felt, how shy and inadequate. I was certain they were talking about me whenever I came into a room, or after I'd walked out of one. When I was 12 years old, and painfully self-conscious about the weight that puberty was adding to my frame, and the height that had suddenly come along with it as I headed toward 6 feet tall. I purposefully went on a crash diet. By then, my parents had given up bread entirely. They spoke constantly about the need to count calories, the need to maintain an attractive, healthy, and lean body. Being overweight was considered a bad thing. It was unattractive. It indicated that someone was either greedy or lacked self-control. In any case, they monitored very quickly every single thing each of us ate. This was long before it became trendy or matter of fact to be as conscious of what we put in our mouths and where it came from and what the protein count was and the carbohydrate count or where the item fell on the insulin scale as people are today. And it was also long before much was known about eating disorders. Anorexia and bulimia weren't on anybody's radar at the time, and certainly no one we knew went to a doctor or mental health professional for weight gains or losses, or anything else for that matter. All I knew was I'd gotten fat and I had to get skinny again, and so I set about doing exactly that. I cut my portions in half. Jesus. I pushed the food around my plate so that it looked like I was eating it. I said no to the potatoes and skipped Sunday breakfast. At school, I skipped lunch. I cut my meat into small pieces, then cut those pieces into even smaller pieces. I eliminated snacks and never ate dessert. The weight started to melt away, and for a while nobody noticed. By the time someone did, I was 5'10" and weighed barely 100 pounds. Jesus. Holy shit. 5'10" and barely 100 pounds. What is that? I know, fuck. 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds, I think. So, 2.2 pounds, 1 kilogram. 40, 40, 50. Holy shit. She's just around 50 kilograms. And she's 5'10". Holy shit. What the fuck? Holy shit, that's damn. Okay, that's pretty bad. Like really bad actually, not pretty bad. Oh my god, what the fuck? Yeah, that's really bad. Holy shit. Yeah, yeah, that's bad. That's really bad. So that means she didn't feel anything wrong with her. Like nothing felt, she didn't feel like it was wrong. Like her health, when she was losing weight, she didn't recognize anything unusual about herself. Or she didn't oh no. She, so symptoms definitely showed up, but she just didn't recognize them to be lethal or detrimental. Okay. At the dinner table one night, my father cleared his throat in what I knew was an introduction to a serious parental discussion. Boys, you may be excused to do your homework now, he said, and I glanced at Warren with alarm. What was this going to be about? Your mother and I need to speak with your sister about a private matter. The boys left, but not without giving me that ha ha ha, you're in for it now look that brothers are so good at. I folded my hands in my lap and braced for whatever was coming. Eileen, began my mother, your dad and I are a little concerned with. My father cut her off. You're not eating enough, he said. You're too thin. You have to start eating more. I'm fine, I protested. I eat what you guys eat. I eat with I eat what everybody eats. It's just that I'm growing. No, you're not, said my father. You're getting taller, but you're not growing. Your skin is pasty. You can barely stay awake at the table. You don't eat enough to keep a mouse alive. You look like a war refugee. Unless you're ill, and I'll be happy to send you to a doctor to find out. I must insist that you eat 3 meals a day. Because if you're not ill, you most certainly will be if this keeps up. I protested and I argued. I argued. I defended my eating habits. I know what I'm doing and I feel perfectly fine, I said. Your attitude is very disappointing, said my mother. This defiance, not to mention what's happening to the way you look. You've lost control. This is not what we want for you. In fact, maybe that's why you're doing this, is it? Various versions of this conversation kept popping up again in the days and weeks that followed. They watched every bite that went into my mouth. They counted every bite that didn't. They woke me up earlier in the morning, made me breakfast, then sat down at the table and watched me attempt to eat it. On weekends, they took me out to lunch, then took me out to dinner. In the face of my stubbornness, they threatened to shorten my curfew and to reduce my movie quota. They would, they said, have to take certain steps. They pleaded, they offered bribes. I felt myself wilting under the intense pressure of their combined watchfulness and the constant lectures. Yeah, I mean, at this age, you don't see it. You don't see, the teenagers. They don't see what the parents are doing. They perceive it as threat. Not a lot of them recognize that they're doing this because they have their own reasons. For fuck's sake, they gave birth to you. Finally, I'd had enough. You guys are driving me crazy, I protested. I'm not sick. I'm not going to die. I'm perfectly fine. I know what I'm doing. After all, I lost this weight on my own. I can put it back if I wanted to. My father got a very calculating look on his face. Okay, prove it, he said. If you think you're so all powerful, prove it. Put the weight back on. I was enraged. Excuse me. My father had finally and deftly maneuvered me into exactly the position he had been trying to get me into for weeks. He had called my bluff, and I had no choice but to comply with what he had demanded. Otherwise, he could say that I was out of control, and then he'd be justified in doing whatever. He had never said precisely what he felt appropriate. So, um, I think the author does a phenomenal job because she definitely realizes what she's writing as you know she's writing about her past self when she was a teenager, so she obviously knows a lot better now, a lot more, um, and it's it's subtly showing she's showing to the readers that where like that kind of mindset, her train of thoughts was like associated with her mental illness, I'm assuming. Um, so I just made up my mind to eat, which wasn't so horrible, because I'd always liked food anyway. All food, all the time. I just hadn't wanted to be fat. In 3 months, I was back to my normal weight. See? I crowed. I told you I knew what I was doing. I said I could do it, and I did. It felt like a great triumph. I'd driven myself so hard in one direction, and then, once challenged, I drove myself hard in completely the opposite direction. And the whole time I was in complete control, or so I thought. I think of that young girl sometimes, that girl I was, not yet a teenager. She may well have had admirable willpower. She might have been stubborn, or ferocious, or strong, or fearless, or maybe she was just plain ornery. I don't know what that means. Oh, bad-tempered, combative, ordinary. But one thing she did not have was complete control of what was going on inside her, and she was going to have to learn that the hard way. Shit. It's ominous. Alright, well, this is the second chapter. I would love to read more about it. Read more, but I'm either gonna read something else or I'm just gonna babble for the next 3 minutes. Oh yeah, the books that I'm reading about schizophrenias, they're called The Collected Schizophrenias Essays and The Center Cannot Hold. I don't know if I have them added on Goodreads. I should add them. Oh, fuck. I really should stop cursing. I recently watched the video where it's a Korean video, and this guy was cursing like crazy. But not crazy. He was cursing. And every time he cursed, something about it just made me not want to watch it. Made me kind of I don't know who he is, right? I don't know how he is in real life. He could be one of the sweetest, one of the most caring individuals that I will ever meet in my lifetime. Just something about him, like hearing him and then watching him say that, that sound, the sentences, the curses associated with his face. Something about it just seemed very, very informal, like very low class kind of thing. Just like everything just kind of seemed off. And why is it so cold? Oh my god, I really need to sleep. Freezing. Yeah, I know. I'm drinking iced coffee. Yeah. Dr. M tosses in as though it's an afterthought, a mention of the most well-known schizophrenia memoir of the last 30 years, written by MacArthur Genius Grant winner Elaine R. Sachs. The mention of Sachs is a potential buffer for her bad news of a terrible diagnosis. I gotta go to the bathroom. Oh my god. If I read one sentence, will that wash away 30 seconds? It can also be seen as Dr. M's way of emphasizing normalcy. You may have schizoaffective disorder, but we can still talk about books. In fact, in 4 years, schizoaffective disorder will be a diagnosis that Ron Powers, in his hefty examination of schizophrenia titled "No One Cares About Crazy People." Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video.